So we have our character here who's been illustrated and live traced, and so now we just need to figure out a way to kind of colorize him. So uh, there's a couple different ways you can think about doing this. I'll just zoom in here really fast. One way that they show you a lot in tutorials is if you look underneath the shape builder tool here, you can actually find the live paint selection tool. The live paint selection tool kind of automatically fills in colors for you if you have something like what we're looking at here. So if we change our color here from black to something else, and then you click on it, you'll see that it's going to tell you that it'll only live paint bucket things if you have the path selected. So what you should do is just select the area that you want to work on, and then grab the tool and then just dump the color in there. And sometimes something like this will happen. You can't figure out what the heck is going on, but if you look, you'll see that instead of using the brown color I selected, it's dumping kind of a black and white version, a grayscale version of that in there. So let's undo that. Go back up here to our color. You can see that the color right now is selected as being grayscale. So we want to go ahead and change this to CMYK. When we do that, we should be able to select the color that we want to use. Oops, let's see. But we don't want to have, if you have the object selected, it's going to change all those fills. So we'll go ahead and, now that we have it changed to CMYK, we can put this back into kind of a brown color, right? And then we can make our selection. So use the black arrow tool, select your area, and then go in here and use the live paint bucket tool. Alright, so now if we deselect, you can see that it's painted that area in. So a lot of people like to go through and paint these different areas out that way, and it kind of just selects, it just tries to find tolerances in between areas here. I really don't like the live paint bucket tool, and I'm not good at it, obviously. If you watch tutorials online, you'll see a lot of people who are better at it than I am. So what I like to do is I like to work in layers. So again, since I'm used to working in kind of old school analog ways, what I would do is I would take my first layer that I have the line work on, and I would just lock that, and then I'd create another layer and put this layer behind it. And then anything I paint on this layer is going to basically be behind the black line work. So if I wanted to kind of color him in now, what I would do is I would make my selection of my color again, and keep in mind that probably one of the easiest ways to do this is to, I think I'm going to go with kind of a green color for his vest. So so if I wanted to select this color and I like it, I can go to my color swatches and I can make this a new swatch. I can also go over here into the color area, into the swatch area, and double click my color, make it the way I want it, make it the color I want it to be. Gotta do it right. And I can just drag that down and drop it in there, and there's the green. So I kind of can always get my hands on that. So what I like to do is I like to use a brush. So Illustrator has a whole bunch of options in here for painting. If you go over here to the brushes palette, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of brushes that you can add. So if you grab one of these with the paintbrush and you draw with it, it'll create a path for you, and then it'll stroke that path with that particular brush. This can be really useful. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. You can go in here and you'll see that there's a whole bunch of brushes that you can load. So if you want to, you can load in like a brush library of, let's just say, bristle brushes. And that'll add the bristle brushes in. And each of these have different properties. So if I use this one and draw with it, you can kind of see the marks that it makes versus this one. And they all kind of just do little different things. So so that might be something that you want to play around with. I actually tend to prefer, when I'm going to do this kind of work, I go in here and go to the paintbrush or the blob brush tool, and I just use that. This again works a little bit more like I was painting with ink or with gouache or something like that. And if I don't like the size of my brush, I can go in here and change that, so I can drop the size of that down. And then I have a Wacom tablet I'm working on right now, so I actually can choose the pressure as a setting. So if I go with pressure, then when I push down on it, it'll give me a little harder or softer mark. I can change the variation and make that bigger or smaller. Click OK. And so now when I do draw a line and I push down harder, it gets thicker. When I let up a little, it gets thinner. So this can be a real useful thing for doing that kind of work. If I don't like this mark, all I have to do, since it's just a vector shape, is I can just delete it. So let's say I want to make his shirt kind of green here. Well, I'll just go in here and kind of like, just like I would if I was painting a painting manually, I would just go in and I'm just going to go in and kind of paint this stuff. And you can see how it looks like it's landing on top, but it's landing behind that black line. So I can use this to go in here and sort of add in whatever I need to on his sweater vest, because this is a logo design I'm working on for a friend of mine who teaches statistics, so it's going to be kind of a geeky stats guy. So I'm going to try and finish this thing off. So you can kind of see how that works. And then if I want to add another layer where so I can put like some kind of color on that S, then I would just create a new layer on top of this one, lock the green layer, change my color here. It's probably got to be red, right? And I can just paint this red mark on here, and it'll be kind of like the red paint is existing on top of the green paint. I can just kind of toggle back and forth as long as I can keep my layers straight, kind of know where I'm putting different colors. It can be a great way to build up an image. So those are a couple of different ways that you can work on using live paint and then adding coloring and coloring behind it. I'm going to go ahead and work on this for a while now, and then we'll come back and continue the tutorials with the next stage.